Does a story have to have high stakes for you to be drawn to it?
I'd say so. Unless you're watching somebody that's so incredibly compelling or an idea that's so compelling. I'd have to think of an idea, but yeah, the stakes have to be high. You have to, because that creates the emotional investment. You have to invest in the character and then invest in the outcomes. And you have to care enough to sit there and want to, even if you kind of know what's going to happen, you just want to see how it's going to happen. That's the real investment. You know that, eventually the character is going to win and get away. You know that. You know the character is not going to die, but you want to see how that's done. So that's done through the heightening of the stakes. And we just want to see how we can become more emotionally involved with the character and the character arc. And then I tend to love twists. I love them. Because what it does is it makes you invest in one thing. And then at the end, it pivots. I don't want to use the word pivot a lot today, but in the end, it switches. And then you're like, I love it. You got me. You got me. And I'll just give just one example of something not like that exactly, but one of my favorite movies ever is $1 Million Baby. It's brilliant. The reason it's brilliant is because unless you know what it's about, I don't want to spoil it, but unless you know what it's about, you think you're watching like a version of the female Rocky. And you're okay with it. You're going right along with it. She's prize fighting, blah, blah, blah. And then something happens and it turns into something completely different. And you realize that the stakes in the original part of that were nothing compared to the stakes in the end. So there's a brilliance to that, So, so the answer is yes in that. I think the stakes have to be high. And you try to establish that early if you can in the movie, and then make it so that we go along the journey and get emotionally involved and invested with the character and with the storyline.
Where did you see the movie? Were you in the theater?
Yes, I did. It's amazing. But some movies like that, it has a slow burn to it, and it's even a little bit noir, very dark, like Eastwood does. And but they're making a lot of decisions about a lot of things, but his final decision is something that he has to do, and it's heartbreaking. It's amazing.
Was it a busy theater? Were other people, could you feel the energy?
So I don't remember exactly, but I bet you $10 it was nobody saying a word on those last. And it's being narrated by Morgan Freeman with that beautiful voice of his, and you realize, it's just something. I sat there and watched all the credits go. It's fascinating to me. I love film.
How did you learn to write stories?
Well, I've always had a pretty good imagination, and I have a pretty clear vision of when I see something, I can pretty much put it onto paper, and I just write stories and short stories and things like that. They always interested me, and I always thought of kind of more high concept stuff, things like, there was even a little bit more futuristic stuff sometimes. But, I really didn't have a teacher or anything. I didn't learn. I just started to write things down. And, the screenwriting teachers will not like me because I just write it. I don't think about structure. I really just channel it. So I feel like, I've always felt like the stories are out there in the universe somewhere. We just type them. I'm just typing it out. So the story exists. And then the characters talk to me and they talk to themselves. So I'm just typing it. So I don't write as much anymore. I just don't have the patience for it, unfortunately. But I have a few stories in my head that I really, really want to write. But I have a really good writer, Benjamin Budd, who's really, really good. and he's better than me. So we have a great collaboration in that way.
But you wrote your first and second film?
About 3, I think.
3, okay.
Yeah.
The one about the banker, what
Yeah,
was...
about the Exodus of Charlie Wright.
Okay, so was this post Madoff or?
Well, it was post Madoff. In fact, it was based around him. When I saw that story, the Bernie Madoff story, the first thing I thought was, he's got all that money, he can run. Now, he gave himself up for the sake of his family, but he could run. And what if he ran someplace where nobody thought he would run? In other words, you're thinking, okay, Bermuda, Caymans, some paradise, he'll buy some island and then buy off the government, to protect him or whatever. But what if he was going through a spiritual journey and maybe looking for somebody? In this case, Exodus of Charlie Wright, where he's looking for somebody. And I mean, I don't want to ruin the film, but it's old now. It's 10 years old. He's sick. He's not going to make it. And so he wants to go find somebody, specifically his daughter that he's never met. And so he's in this Zen place where none of the money matters anymore. And he realizes how the more he chased the money, the more problems he had. And when he can finally do things for other people, he became a better person in his last days. And so I thought of that. And what's strange about it was just going to be like a Bernie Madoff story. And then at the end, I thought, what if he's sick? It completely informs the entire motivations about the story. And I just wrote very quickly the very, very last thing. Instead of him going to jail, they let him go because he's only got a couple months to live anyway. So what's the point? He'll never make trial. But some of the things that he was able to do and some of the people he was able to bring together was all worth it. So I guess to get to what I was saying, no one taught me to write it. I just see the stories. They're pretty clear to me and I just type them out.
Right. So you remember hearing the actual Madoff story?
I do.
And then
it fascinated me.
Yeah.
And the line story, La Linea, which is about an assassin that goes to, American assassin that goes into Mexico to get the head of the Tijuana cartel. And that came from when you cross over the border back then, there was a wanted poster. It said $5 million for the Arellano Felix brothers. I can say that now. Back then I couldn't say it because they're both dead. But because you really couldn't say the name back then. But the Arellano Felix brothers was the Arellano Felix cartel, which is the cartel that used to run Tijuana. They're gone, long since gone now. There is no cartel in Tijuana anymore. But so I remember seeing that, and I remember the day before, I saw the guy. He was in a yellow Hummer with about 4 cars around him. And he's just walking around, driving around. I'm thinking, $5 million? You can't tell me that some special forces guys are broke or something and don't want to come down here. I mean, that would, a real professional would try to get that, would come down to get him. So it's the same thing. And so it just kind of was born from that. I thought, wow, I mean, that's a very easy story to write for me. It's just some guy goes down there and wants that money,
Sure. And so it sounds like the stakes have to be really high in all this, again, going back to the storytelling. Mm-hmm. It can't just be, because in the Exodus of Charlie Wright, it wasn't just the FBI that was after it, it was a cartel. He'd wronged many people. It was
a cartel, and it was also the Russian mob. Because he was an investment banker, and he had taken money from an old Russian mob boss, $100 million, and invested it. And they weren't going to just wait for him to go to jail. They went and sent their guys after him. So he had the FBI going after him, he had the Russian mob, and then he had the local cartel people that were in financial trouble. And they were basically, they were getting killed off one by one because they didn't pay off the loan. So all of a sudden here comes Bernie Madoff guy. Where's the money? We know it, you're hiding it. And so but they all go off their separate ways. So
Right. So many high stakes.
yes, very
Right.
high stakes.
And then his own health. So yeah.
Yeah, and then realize none of it mattered. That's the point.
How long did it take you to write that script?
Not long. I started it and wrote it maybe a month.
And so but that was your second film, right? So
Third.
Third. Okay, sorry. So you had a financier. You weren't coming out of pocket for it.
No, that was all set up. Just went right into it.
Okay.
And I got to direct it because I had the vision. So
Where did you write it?
where?
Yeah. Where were you?
In Baja, Rosarito Beach.
You have a special place? Like
Yeah, I lived there most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have a room, or sometimes if it's something gritty, do you have to be in a gritty place where it's kind of chaotic?
What I do, I just have to listen to, when I used to write, I used to listen to classical music in the background. I don't listen to it any other time, but for some reason it helps me write. Maybe I should do it again so I can start writing again.
Well, there's been studies that, it stimulates a different part of the brain, you know?
I don't know why that is. I just type it out and do it pretty quick.
Fascinating. And so no outline, no beat sheet, just the story. Do you use a screenwriting software?
Yeah, final draft.
Oh, great. Okay. So
Just type it out.
did anybody say, don't make this movie? Don't put the story out there. It's too soon.
No, because it was far enough away. It was far enough away, and Charlie Wright was played by Aidan Quinn brilliantly. Charlie Wright was a very interesting character, a very somber character. He'd obviously we don't know until the end that he's sick, but we were kind of wondering why he would the guy with all that money chose to go to this, slum apartment in hotel room, in the red light district of Tijuana. And his day consists of where it used to be of being chauffeured around. Now it consists of sitting on a bus and going watching kids play soccer and things like that. He's reimagining the world, and we're going along with him doing that. So it's a really interesting piece, and very well performed.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Sounds